With Monday Night Football featuring two teams from the AFC, we can take an early look at the NFC playoff picture heading into Week 7. As usual, the calculations will come from the Playoff Computer app. If you take fantasy football way too seriously and want to know exactly how things look in your 17 leagues, check it out on the Play Store. It has all sorts of geeky stuff, including the NFL style paths to clinch, so you know what matters before making that big trade. And fair warning, this is a results-driven mathematical analysis. There is no bias for or against teams that are supposed to be good or bad. The only thing that truly matters is actual results so far, with win tiebreaker status and the nuances of the remaining schedule telling us where things stand. With that being said, the team in the NFC with the highest statistical chance is obviously
We're number one. We're number
the
one.
still
We're number
undefeated
one.
Minnesota Vikings. And it was pretty easy to stay undefeated while being on bye. Unfortunately for them, while they were eating pasties on Sunday, the rest of the NFC North continued the winning theme, meaning all three other teams are within a game and a half of the Vikings. So now, at 5-0, they aren't even a mathematical favorite to win the division, falling to 44% while doing nothing. And with the NFC now having a 7-game advantage in interconference games, meaning there are a lot more wins floating around in the NFC as compared to the AFC, even their playoff odds of 83% are not befitting a perfect so far team. On the flip side, 5-0 is better than the alternatives. They are halfway towards the win target for a safe number to get a wild card of 10. As of now, their win target for the division is 11 or 12. Big game hosting the Lions coming up will be for first place in the division. Obviously, such entertainment would be a primetime game, right? Let me check the primetime schedule. Broncos at Saints, Chargers at Cardinals. Okay, yeah, almost as good. Anyway, conveniently next up are those Detroit Lions, continuing their march up the list after impressively destroying the Cowboys. Actually, I'm not sure that's all that uncommon a feat nowadays. Sorry, Cowboys fans. The Lions are at 4-1, and interestingly, all 5 games so far have been non-division conference games, so they already have all but one of those games in the books. Those are 4 chits that may prove valuable in the head-to-head tiebreaker register, particularly the last 2 against the Cowboys and Seahawks. The loss to the Buccaneers being the only credit in the logs that might come back to cause trouble come wild card determination time. Now, one thing to point out, since they haven't played a division game yet, which there are 6, and everyone else in the division is so far pretty good, their remaining schedule toughness on paper has to take a dramatic turn on the difficulty schedule, with only 2 of their remaining opponents currently having losing records. As of now, 1 in 4 chance to win the division, 2 out of 3 to make the playoffs. Obviously, this week's game against the Vikings is huge. As mentioned, it's going to be tough going most of the way home. Also, moving up slightly to number 3 are the Atlanta Falcons. Took care of business against the Panthers. That does give them a complete sweep of the first round of division games. So effectively for now, they have a game lead over the Buccaneers, with that rematch actually coming as early as Christmas decorations at department stores next week. With the unblemished division record and also a perfect conference record, they are a 50-50 chance to win the division and near 2 out of 3 to make the playoffs. Their win target to claim the NFC South ranges from 9 to 11, 11 being the safe mark. 10 is maybe realistic, but the Buccaneers don't look half bad, at least when playing backup quarterbacks. The Falcons get the Seahawks this week before that rematch down in Tampa. And again, the data is being quite convenient this week with the rankings. Next up in the 4th spot are those Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Racked up a lot of points against the Saints to improve to 4-2, same as the Falcons, but of course that head-to-head loss against the Falcons means they cannot win that tiebreaker and can only lose it. With the Falcons already at 3 division wins, the rematch next week will be crucial for division winning purposes and likely important as well just from a conference record standpoint. Right now the Bucs do have a nice 4-1 conference record, which does include wins over 3 teams looking like playoff contenders: Commanders, Lions, and Eagles. Side note, having played all those playoff contenders does give them an impressive strength of schedule so far that they have overcome for the most part, and things do even out a little bit, just not in the next 4 weeks. Ravens, Falcons, again, Chiefs and 49ers before their bye. Maybe hope to come out of it at 6-4. Currently a shade under 4-10 to win the division and right at 6-10 to make the playoffs. After getting a cockiness check that moved them down a few spots, the Washington Commanders are next up at number 5. Still have a precarious lead in the NFC East at 4-2. Right around 4 out of 10 to take the division and 6 out of 10 to make the playoffs. They lost to the Ravens, of course, didn't hurt their conference or division records. They get a reward for having played the Ravens, as they now get what should be a friendlier match against the Panthers. Then Bears, and interestingly, they complete their series against the Giants before they play any against the Eagles or Cowboys. Computer says call it 10 wins for a safe mark for them to take the division. Moving back to the NFC North, I don't know what metrics the NFL uses that places the Bears in last place in their standings and not the Packers, as the Packers have a worse division and conference record. But whatever. The Bears are slightly ahead of the Packers in odds because of the better division and conference records. Call it 17% to win the division, 57% to make the playoffs. Just beat the Jaguars, which does almost signal the end of their so far pushover schedule to date. Still have the currently 1-5 Patriots in a few weeks on their bye this week, and then get that entertaining game against the Commanders. And again, they do have the toughest on paper rest of schedule in the NFC, so they are going to need to beat some quality teams to think about the postseason. Once again, the calculations are trying to make things simple. Staying in the NFC North and finishing it off are the Green Bay Packers at number 7. Beat the Cardinals handily to join the Bears in last place at 4-2. And as with all these NFC North teams that now have to start playing each other, their rest of season schedule gets decidedly more difficult as well. Right now, the 1 division loss and even Steven conference record puts them at the back of the pack, pun intended, as far as the odds go. 15% for the division and 56% for playoffs. At number 8 are the Philadelphia Eagles. Beat the Browns, which is about as common as getting a lot of fries at Five Guys. Hit and miss with the conference play. Some wins against the Packers and Saints, but have lost to both teams in the NFC South that might figure to be in the wildcard race. Haven't played a division game yet, so they pretty much can control their own destiny. Start that with the Giants this week. The Bengals and Jaguars, as the rest of the season gets a bit easier from now on. In fact, very easy, relatively speaking, on paper anyway, and they'll still have to win the games. But no reason they couldn't be 6-2 in 3 weeks' time, around 3 out of 10 to win the NFC East, and a bit under even odds to make the playoffs. That NFC conference edge over the AFC really making 3-2 in the NFC not all that valuable. This might be some kind of record in a stat I have never kept track of, but it's taken us to get to number 9 before seeing our first team from the NFC West, the San Francisco 49ers. Beat the Seahawks to take over first place at 3-3, but somebody's got to be in first. Does give them their first division and conference victory to put on the board. Their target for winning the division is looking like 9 to 10 wins, 10 being safer, of course. They've gotten their first round of division battles past them and now get the Chiefs at home, followed by the Cowboys, then their bye. 1-3 to take the division, a bit over 4 out of 10 to make the playoffs. Another team whose rest of season looks tougher than their schedule so far, which doesn't make 3-3 seem all that good. And the calculations come through again as we stay in the NFC West for number 10, the Seattle Seahawks. The loss against the 49ers gives them now an 0-3 conference record, about the same odds as the 49ers. We'll need to avenge this head-to-head loss possibly, 1-3 for division and 4 out of 10 for postseason. Falcons in Atlanta on deck. The Dallas Cowboys fall all the way to number 11 after being embarrassed by the Lions. Even at 3-3 with a 1-2 conference record puts them a bit shy of 1-4 for the division and a bit shy of 4-10 for the playoffs. On their bye this week to try and regroup, come out of it with a tough slate of 49ers, Falcons, Eagles, Texans, Commanders. Might be lucky to be 4-6 after that. The Arizona Cardinals' hot and cold run continued with more cold, losing to the Packers and ruining a chance to have taken control of the NFC West. Now 2-4, not really looking that good at that. Have already played 5 conference games, and having dropped 3 of those, that very much could come into play were they aiming to get back into the picture. Host the Chargers this week and then play the Dolphins. Probably need to go 8-3 the rest of the way to make the playoffs. So these are 2 must-win games to at least get back to 500. Do have a somewhat favorable schedule the rest of the way. The New Orleans Saints freefall continued, dropping their 4th in a row. At 2-4 with poor division and conference records, gives them about an 8% chance to win the division and just 17 to make the playoffs. Their schedule isn't all that tough the rest of the way, so there might still be hope. Broncos, Chargers, Panthers for the next 3. Probably need to win at least 2 out of those 3 to have a chance to stay in the picture. The Los Angeles Rams were on bye week and now must decide if they want to join the Jamboree in the mud for the NFC West. Currently a 13% chance to come back for the division, 17% to make the playoffs. At 1-4, likely need to go somehow 9-3 the rest of the way. Not a terrible remaining schedule to try to attempt that feat, as long as you don't count the Vikings next week. The equally down-and-out Raiders this week at home. Got to start somewhere. The Giants gave up last week's gains and sink back to near the bottom of the barrel. With a not easy remaining schedule featuring 7 teams currently above 500, there is probably little hope. 7% chance to take the division, hampered by the already 0-2 division record, and 17% to make the playoffs. The Eagles at home this week. I have a feeling they might need to put all 11 guys on Barkley. The Carolina Panthers reinforced their bunker positioning with their 3rd loss in a row, the latest to the Falcons, so that puts them 0-2 in the division, 0-3 in the conference, and 1-5 overall. That adds up to 25-1 odds against winning the division and just 7% mathematically to make the playoffs with a fairly tough schedule remaining. Commanders this week, probably stick a fork in them without a miracle win. That's it for now in the NFC. Possibly no show next week due to life events. For now, enjoy your day.